on the nose. All right. Happy Monday night. Let a few people hop in here in the chat. A few people have already asked a few really good questions here. Appreciate you guys always doing that, being ahead of schedule. First one was at like 3 o'clock today, which is cool to see. Shout out to Max Avery, always doing a good job scheduling the lives, making sure that we look good with the audio and the visual and everything else that he does for the channel and all the social media stuff that we do. Appreciate him and all that he does. We are on here every Monday and Wednesday night. We run it down in the AMA. Ask me anything. Go through everything, digital assets, including how to prepare for liquidity event. If you anticipate making a bunch of money in crypto, you're invested in the right spots. We've got Trump tweeting and I don't want to say manipulating markets. That's probably not the best term for the sitting president, but definitely causing a stir yesterday on Sunday, driving prices sky high for a few specific assets. Then we saw a big pullback today in the markets. So I don't know who traded that, but good job if you made some money on the way up and then shorting it on the way down. I don't know that anybody's aware of what's going on like that and able to capitalize on it. But if you are, cheers to you. Or maybe you're viewing this as an opportunity like me to buy more. So hopefully, you've done a good job in dollar cost average over the bear market before we saw the price appreciation that we have up to this point. But if you didn't, I still think that there is time before a lot of these assets appreciate to the significantly higher values that I feel like they're going to be in the near future. So not financial advice, but might look at, some of the assets that I think are highly undervalued, some of which we talk about all the time here on the channel. XRP, XLM, HBAR, Algorand, IOTA, Ondo, Avalanche. I don't know about Chainlink. I don't know if it's undervalued or not. We'll have to see how things play out for that over the long term, being an oracle in the space. A lot of news about HBAR. We saw a Doge ETF today. We also got Trump Jr. talking about traditional finance needs to catch up with crypto. Otherwise, it's going to go extinct. I don't know if you guys saw that tweet on Saturday or not. We also got the Kraken case with the SEC was dropped today. And now I think we're just down to Ripple and the SEC. I think that's the only thing left open for the investigations that have been opened by the SEC or that under the previous administration. And I feel like just because of things that I'm dealing with on the private equity side, that there's, potentially somebody knows something about the case being settled or dropped in the near future. So exciting stuff on the horizon here. We're going to get into all that and more in the questions I'm sure people have that are burning that they've asked over here in the chat. We're over here on TikTok. We're live on X and YouTube. And hopefully in the near future, we'll be over there on Instagram as well. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into it. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me on a Monday night. Robbie, first one up here. He says, do you believe including XRP in the strategic reserve will expedite the implementation of yield generating options? No, I do not. And I can tell you that because we are it. There's really not any other institutional way to be able to generate returns on the XRP. There are DeFi protocols out there that are kind of springing up on the EVM sidechain and on hooks, and other people that are looking to put XRP to work through Flare and other mechanisms. But we have, as far as I'm aware, the only institutional product that allows you to be able to generate returns on your XRP at Digital Wealth Partners. Those funds are going to go live here in the middle of this month in March. We're going to be issuing the first capital call. The projections for the returns on XRP that are put into those strategies, which you don't have to sell, by the way. It's held there in institutional custody, insured, siloed, and separate, bankruptcy remote from any ability for an institution to claim it if it went under. We're looking at somewhere between, on the low end, 15% on an annual basis. On the high end, closer to 30% is what we currently have projected based on previous returns for the strategies that we are working with. So excited to be able to put that to work and be able to generate returns on XRP and for our clients there at Digital Wealth Partners. But as far as other options coming available, if it were to be implemented with the strategic reserve, I can tell you we are consistently talking with the other investment banks, partnered with Bank of America on some stuff that we're working on for the private wealth clients, and they do not have a way to hold your XRP. I can tell you right now, I hoped, right, for a long time that these things would be in place, when XRP appreciated. But I can tell you, everyone we talk to, they're focused on where the liquidity currently is and not where it's moving or where it's going. We've decided to put our focus on these utility-driven assets. We're working to get HBAR, XLM will be available there at Anchorage for custody and returns in the near future, here in the next 30 days. And then we have XDC on the docket in Q2 along with HBAR as well. So as far as I'm aware, again, just being on the bleeding edge and talking to everybody that we're talking to, I don't know of anybody else that is going to have the ability to generate yield or returns on your XRP in any shorter period of time than what we already have in place. And for the institutions to be able to put stuff in place to be able to do that, I think you're looking at least 6 to 12 months before those options exist there. DeFi may come sooner, right? So we have liquidity pools. When I talked to David Schwartz last year at Consensus, he said he thought that liquidity pools would be up for vote as an amendment on the XRPL sometime in May, June this year. So that's still a quarter away for most people. And we have the option going live this month for our clients there at Digital Wealth Partners. So anyway, great question. But I don't think it would expedite anything any more than it already is. I say that once liquidity is in XRP, there will be attention on it. There will be people that want to use it and do stuff with it because there's money to be made there. I think we're just 6 months ahead or 6 to 12 months ahead of everybody else. CS 2024 says, "Hey Jake, how are you? Do you think the U.S. government and Ripple could work a deal with Ripple, sells them a portion of the escrow, allowing them to be the top holder for XRP?" I think they may have already done that. So we've got 1,700 NDAs that were disclosed in the lawsuit with Ripple, in their lawsuit with the SEC. And Cosmopolitan says, "Do you have a hair transplant?" Yes, I do. I went last year to Turkey and got a hair transplant. I don't know. It's noticed. It's all right. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I do think that there's a potential that they've already negotiated a portion of the escrow to the U.S. government or the IMF, a much larger body that would govern the flow of that XRP onto the market, if it were to be institutionalized or deemed a systemically important asset or a tier 1 asset under the BIS or Bank of International Settlements. Ripple's been around for 12 years. And so has XRP. Well, I say that. So XRP's been around. It'll be 13 years this year on June 2nd. 2012, June 2nd was the year and date that it was minted, 100 billion XRP, or back then it was XNS. But Ripple's been around since 2014, so we're going on 10 years for Ripple, building out the ecosystem, the partnerships, the integrations, laying the foundation for this ledger and this technology to persist across the globe and be integrated with global finance. I'm pretty confident they've already had these conversations. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but I would be willing to bet that the Treasury or U.S. government has one of those allocations, if not the ability to take the escrow through eminent domain or some other action. And maybe they do have to trade it for U.S. Treasuries, but they're going to need it to be on the U.S. government's balance sheet prior to price appreciation if they're going to use it to offset the debt. They can't issue more stuff and then use that to purchase the XRP on the other side of price appreciation. So whatever happens, I think it's going to end up over there on the U.S. government's balance sheet prior to the price appreciation. And maybe they have an option on the XRP for a large amount of it. Avatar 13 says, "Hi Jake, how are you? R3, I see you." Main settlement is XDC, not XRP. Correct B if I'm wrong. And I do think ETHgate will come out, and also to look at the reverse carry trade happening, like 130 JPY to USD or the 10-year yield. So you can see my mug here. We got this from R3 at their headquarters in New York. We work with them. You can listen to Crypto Area if you want to, but I'm telling you, in conversations with them, they have told us they will only use something that's regulated here in the US. And there's only two assets that have regulatory clarity here in the US. That's Bitcoin and XRP, not XDC. So, they can settle through both. You were right. It's both. But there's got to be enough liquidity in the asset for it to settle, and it has to have regulatory clarity here in the US. And neither of those exist in XDC. So I'm going to say it's XRP, based on my conversations with R3 and what they've told us. Just that piece right there. And so outside of that, I do think that, SBI has a pretty vested interest in R3 and Ripple. They own 10% of either one of those companies. And they have a very interest in XRP's success. Also, we've seen, some other stuff with XDC with them. XDC is not domestic here. I've spoken at XDC's offices. I know Atul and Ritesh. I've been to Dubai. We hosted a conference there at their offices in February last year. So when I say stuff, it's not because I looked it up online or I read it somewhere. It's because I've had conversations directly with the people that are building this stuff, which is very different than any of the other influencers out there. And not to throw shade on any of them, I really like what they put out. I think they're really good people, and I do think that they're trying to help people. But at the end of the day, unless you're working with these people in some capacity or providing them value or doing things in a real way, you're not going to know. You're going to be speculating. I can tell you I'm not speculating. So I do think that the reverse carry trade is going to unwind. I think it's closer to 140 JPY to USD. That's where it started to have some issues last time. And anything over 1.5 on the 10-year yield for the JPY and those treasuries there, I think is the danger zone for things to start crumbling. So good question. But again, not to throw shade on anybody else, but we've had the conversations, heard it from the horse's mouth. It's not like I guess at this stuff. And we talk about a lot of that stuff here in the mastermind. If you want to go check that out, we're in there every single Monday and every single Saturday talking about all the gyms. We talked about some pretty significant news with Kraken here just recently. I'm not going to talk about it publicly, but some pretty cool stuff happening there. If you have interest in learning some of that stuff, I would just encourage you to go check out the mastermind. We do have 1 month free for anybody that wants to go check it out in Social or Carbon One. The code for that, if you want to go to the website there, is Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar. Get you a free month there in the group, and you can hear all of the inside information that we do drop about conversations that we're having with. The way that I put it is, I feel like I'm an Indian on the campground, and the chiefs come out of the teepee every once in a while, and they talk to me. Right? We're blessed enough to be in the room. Very grateful for these opportunities to be around individuals. Went to Swell the last 2 years. I got to speak with Lauren Belive and the SEC at our conference at Georgetown last year. We met Hester Pierce and talked to her and her crew before Gary was removed. We were in DC. Going to continue to be at these events around the right people in the right rooms to have the conversations. So anyway, yeah, excited to continue to bring that value to the group there, and would love for you to be in it. The only deal right now is you just have to go connect with me on LinkedIn, and then you're able to sign up there in the group. And again, free month, Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there to try it out. If you don't like it for whatever reason, you can always cut it off with no charge. Gabe, how are you, sir? He says, if Project Ion is utilized, I'm assuming we'd have an unknown reason why XRP would suddenly be pumping. They wouldn't announce it. I think there will be chaos in markets. When the reverse carry trade unwinds, you're going to see stuff. Things are going to be burning down. Everybody's going to be freaking out. I think people that hold XRP are just going to be sitting back smiling because they know what's going to happen at the end of it. It's been a very long saga. If you've been here throughout the lawsuit or owned XRP for any longer amount of time, longer than a couple years, it's been a beating. But we know what the end game is, and that what you're talking about there with the back end settlement of the stock market using Project Ion, R3, and the DTCC. You can go check that out if you want to. Just give it a Google. They finalized that project in, I believe it was June or July of 2022. So it's been around for a while, running in tandem with the back end of the stock market, ready to settle as soon as there's enough liquidity in XRP for it to do it. Last year on May 28th, they moved to T+1 with the option to settle real time with a digital asset. This person's asked XRP in March. I mean, we already saw a big pump yesterday, but we're back down. I think Q1 is still a really good time to maybe buy XRP or see some price appreciation. Just depends. We've got global macroeconomic events that have to play out, and it's predicated on those things happening. If we don't see those things or the ETFs or some other catalyst, we could continue trending sideways here for a little bit longer. Let's see here. Make sure I'm not missing any other super chats, and we'll go back up and grab a couple more. We have Matrix Exited. Interesting name. They say, "Hey Jake, how are you? Thank you so much for all that you do. Love the Beyond Broke Mastermind and DWP. Awesome, brother. Glad to have you on board." He said, "Onboarded with Anchorage and feeling so grateful for all you've built." Kira, thank you for the kind words. I've talked about this in the past, but I've built all this stuff selfishly. I wanted someplace to hold my XRP in institutional custody with insurance, and they'll be able to borrow against it, be able to earn returns on it. Just like the first question we had tonight was, do you think that, adding it as a strategic reserve is going to be a catalyst for generating yield on XRP? Because a lot of people want that. I decided to stop sitting around waiting and just build it so that people would have it before price appreciation showed up. And we've got a really good team. It hasn't been easy. It's definitely not a smooth process. It's getting smoother every single day, but we've been able to, and it's because of you guys. Like if there was not demand for this, if there weren't other people that were wanting the same thing as me, we wouldn't have the ability to do it. We've got close to 100 million XRP under management at this point. Just been blown away by the amount of people that have wanted to jump in here and work with us, earn returns on their XRP, be able to borrow against it, have it in a place where they know that it's insured and taken care of. And just crazy to see all the support, and I'm super excited to have you on board, and know that you can sleep good at night with your assets insured and in a safe place without any issues. So thank you again for the kind words, and again, super excited to work with you and all the other wonderful clients we have there at Digital Wealth Partners. We have Falcon 33. What steps are needed? Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Are needed to make crypto part of the U.S. strategic reserve after Trump's announcement? Could this take years to do? No, they already have a financial working committee that's going to decide within 180 days of Trump's inauguration what assets are going to be held in a strategic reserve. They've already stated multiple times that they are going to have it. They're just working through which ones it's going to be. And we saw Trump, tweet out XRP, Sol, and ADA. And then 30 minutes later, he was like, oh, yeah, and Bitcoin and ETH. The Bitcoin and ETH people were having somewhat of a meltdown about, those two not being included there over there on Twitter. I don't know if you guys caught that or not. Excuse me. I don't think it's going to be years. I think it's going to be the first half of this year. We will have a strategic crypto reserve here in the U.S. And I do think it's going to be utility-driven assets. It's going to be U.S.-based issued assets. It's not going to be, I'll go ahead and say it. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. Man, I thought the T was going to help me. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. I'm going to make a big bet. And I will say if I'm wrong. I'm always happy to say when I'm wrong, but I'm going to say that Bitcoin and ETH will not be included in the U.S. Strategic Reserve. And that would be wildly unpopular by most standards and most people. But I will make that prediction. And again, if I'm wrong, happy to say I'm wrong. I hope I am, because there are a lot of people that I know that hold large amounts of BTC and, ETH that I know. But it is my belief that neither one of those will end up in the strategic reserve. I think it's going to be U.S.-based, utility-driven assets that have real value and appreciation that are going to be held in that reserve. So we'll see. I'm sure people will call me out on it. And again, happy to admit if I'm wrong. But I'm gonna make the call. We have Incognito. They say talk about Zelle updates and how they could affect T+1 transfers. Also go over when T+0 and atomic settlements, please. So Zelle is a payment app, right, that most people use. I think that most peer-to-peer transactions and merchant services and payment processors will end up using Hyperledger. The majority of the businesses that we've had conversations with that are utilizing blockchain technology in that capacity are using Hyperledger BOSU. They have 4 different products on Hyperledger that most of the merchant service processors and peer-to-peer payment platforms have looked at, and Hyperledger BOSU seems to be the main showstopper there that the majority of them are looking at implementing or already trialing. And that would move it T+0. It would be instant settlement between counterparties, and then atomic settlements. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the third company that PolySign had, which was AtomicNet. And it was basically an intermediary that removed a broker or an escrow agent. You could escrow either one of the items that you were swapping on chain, and then you had a smart contract in the middle that, once certain stipulations had been met, would atomically swap these 2 assets. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to, but basically it's an instant swap with no counterparty risk is what you're wanting for atomic settlements. And that would be instant. It would also be T+0. Again, May 28th last year, they enabled the capability to settle through digital assets at T+0 if there's enough liquidity. Let's see here if we've got any other super chats. Appreciate you guys on the super chats. Henry Lou says, hey, Jake, how are you, sir? Did you see Saylor capitulated with a strategic reserve on MSNBC? You think the other losers will follow soon? Appreciate you. Well, I mean, I just said it. I don't think that Bitcoin and ETH will end up as part of the strategic crypto reserve. This person over here on TikTok has asked, aren't Bitcoin and ETH the backbone of crypto? They have the most liquidity. The backbone of crypto, I would argue, is actually Tether. It is the main stable coin that provides liquidity across the ecosystem, and I think that they're going to rug that through sanctions. I think they're going to sanction that network, and it's going to cause pandemonium across exchanges and crypto markets. A liquidity crisis when that happens. I think people will run from Bitcoin and ETH, be very scared when that's going on. I think a lot of people will capitulate because there's been Tether FUD for years. But if they were to suck the liquidity out of Tether or pin Epstein to it or do something else that caused people want to abandon it, we've already seen Mica abandon it. We've seen Crypto.com, move it off of their platform. I think that you'll see other U.S. exchanges probably follow so in the near future. We talked to MasterCard and Visa last year. They had already de-risked. All the exchanges in the EU and in Dubai had de-risked from Tether. So it's a ticking time bomb, and that's literally the logo is an atomic bomb. So I think when that blows up, it's going to cause mass chaos across crypto. And I would argue that that's actually the backbone of the market. But yeah, I think that I don't know that other Bitcoin bulls, Jack Mallers and many of the others will capitulate on that. We also saw Peter Schiff capitulate on Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys caught that or not. when he tweeted about what the heck is XRP. He mentioned that Bitcoin, like, okay, I could see that, like, it is digital gold, which he's been fighting for the last 10 years. He's actually, so this is a funny story. Peter Schiff is actually the first person that I ever watched that actually got me into crypto. I watched a debate between Peter Schiff and another bull on Bitcoin. This was in mid 2020. And that's what turned me on to the asset class and made me start investing in it and wanting to learn more about it. Up until then, I really didn't understand what it was. And I love Austrian economics. I love capitalism. I think that Peter Schiff is an extremely intelligent individual, but I think he has missed the boat on this one and just can't capitulate on the gold because that is his whole business and prerogative. But he's obviously done okay for himself, has a fund, has the gold reserves, has his businesses that he has built his brand around it, which kudos to him. But it was just funny to see him capitulate on that. Now we've got Saylor capitulating on Bitcoin on public television. Lucas Walker, thank you for the super chat. He says, always try and catch every stream and send a super chat just to say thanks. Thank you, man. Thank you for the kind words. Do you think we're entering a recession? I'm hoping to hit 4 digits by end of year or next year at the latest. It's a pipe dream. Is it a pipe dream? I need a $350 XRP. I think you're going to get it. I think that there's a high probability if any one of the scenarios that I've painted plays out, even if it's not all the dominoes, that we could see a 3 and 4 digit XRP in the very near future. And that's probably a hard concept for a lot of people. Most people think in a linear fashion. In school, you're taught to look at a graph and you see it go up and to the right, and maybe there's some volatility, but it's moving right and upward. When in reality, the majority of things across your life and really most of reality move exponentially. So they start off slow, they build momentum across a long period of time before they hit an inflection point, and then they go vertical. And I think that's what we're going to see with XRP. I think we're going to see mass adoption, critical mass, utility, ETFs, all of it hit right at the same time. And it's going to be a perfect storm for the appreciation of that asset. And then the utility of it to hold the price stability at those high prices. You saw it move up, 38,000% back between 2014 and 2017 or early 2018, like January 4th was a top. I know people that made that 1000x on that XRP back then. And I think people that bought at the bottom of this bear market may also get that 1000x on their XRP. So we will see, what the future holds. But if I had a crystal ball, I would bet that you're going to see those prices, brother. Let's see here. A couple more super chats, and then we'll grab a couple over here on TikTok. We've got, do you have any advice or perspective for the top 1% of XRP holders as far as how your life can/will change in the next 5 years? Sona, very good question. I talked about this at XRP Vegas in 2023. I view wealth creation and wealth management as two different skill sets. So in order to generate significant wealth, you normally have to go all in on one thing, whether that's a business or it's an investment. You take years of your life and you pour it into a vision or one thing to bring it to reality. And for a lot of people, this is their one thing. This is their home run. This is their fat pitch. They've worked the last 4 or 5 years in dollar cost average and accumulate enough to be in the top 1% of XRP holders. Okay. And you've had to have a really strong conviction to be in that group because of the volatility of the asset, along with the lawsuit, all the FUD that people have faced over that period of time. It has not been easy. And anybody that says you got lucky, they don't know what it took. And they probably won't ever have an appreciable amount of wealth because they think that people can get lucky and make that much money. Outside of lottery winners, here's the other part of that. I view this as a tree and then branches, right? So you grow your wealth in one vertical. There's a core investment or early investment, even if it's a business, of your time, energy, resources that you watered and took care of for an extended period of time that grows. And then at the top, once you have the wealth, then you diversify across other asset classes that are non-correlated, not generating anywhere near the type of returns that you initially got. You're okay with an 8 to 10% yield year over year, as long as you're managing to be able to keep up with inflation and you're getting a real return on your money. Wealth preservation and wealth management is a very different skill set than wealth creation. And so that's what I think most people in the XRP community that are in the top 1% of holders are going to have to learn. We've tried to, put ourselves in a position to be able to help people with that. I see that problem happening. Because myself included, I didn't grow up with money. I think a lot of people in this space, the other analogy I use is, like a dog chasing a car. We've all seen them. They're excited. They want to catch the car. They know they want to catch the car. We all know we want money. We all know that we need the money. The problem is when you get the money, are you the dog trying to drive a car? Or are you a person trying to drive a car? Do you know how to drive that car, what speed to drive that car? Are you just going to run yourself over with it? Most lottery winners go bankrupt within 3 to 5 years. They're not aware of the tax implications that they're going to have to deal with. They don't know how to set up their estate to protect their assets. They don't understand insurance. They don't understand other investments to be able to generate cash flow and depreciation to offset that income. They haven't taken the time to learn that skill set because they got rich very quickly. And they also often, I've seen in this space, people continue to take big bets when you don't have to. You've already made your money, right? You can ease off the gas. You can take, 10% or less of your portfolio and gamble it and stay in this asset class and take high risk bets with it. But the majority of it needs to be in a very stable, yield bearing, conservative, well-managed position. I think XRP will provide that over the long term. Like I said, mentioned before, I think it'll be a tier 1 asset designated by the BIS. I think that it'll be a very safe place to hold your money. And that's the other reason that I'm siloed there. I don't have any other investments. I think XRP will be the perfect synergy between generating wealth and then also maintaining it over a long time horizon. So I would just encourage people to start learning about those things. That we're on here every Monday and Wednesday night talking about some of that stuff. In the mastermind, it's curated for that. All the information that we share there, especially in Carbon 2, is centered around how to protect your wealth, how to establish things the right way, set yourself up for success on the other side of appreciation, and even before then, so you can mitigate the taxes and the risks that you're going to have when you have money in your life. And many of the people there in that group are already high-level business owners or professionals doing, 6 to 9 figures in revenue each year that we work with. But I think that other people that are in the top 1% of XRP holders could be in that group very soon. And again, I would encourage you to put yourself around the right people, find professionals now to be able to make sure you're setting yourself up for success. Because people talk about more money, more problems. It's not a lie. Like, oh, you have so much money, it's a problem. Like, great problems to have, but they're still problems, just so you're aware. And money solves a lot of problems, but it also creates some other problems. And there's also problems that money can't solve. And those are what you're left with on the other side of appreciation. So I would just get right with your spouse and the other people in your life. Make sure that you have plans in place to be able to have conversations with those individuals. One of the things that I think would be a good idea for most people is to put a financial committee and a family board in place on the other side of appreciation. So what that does is, Uncle Kenny comes to you and he says, hey, I saw that you got some jingle in your pocket. I got this business idea. I got this piece of real estate. I need a loan. You say, great. We would love to do that. I'm just going to need you to send the pro forma for whatever you want over to our financial committee. They're going to review it. If it meets the criteria for our types of investments, then we would love to allocate the capital to you. And if it doesn't, then we won't be able to. And then you're not the bad guy, right? Like, you have a system, and they're not going to be like, oh, well, man, you could do it. They might be, but if they just want the money and they don't really have anything, that's what they're going to do. And then there's going to be other times where they bring you something really cool. They've done their due diligence. They've put together a pro forma on a property or something that actually has good comps and IRR and cash on cash, and they've done their homework. And maybe they actually do know what they're talking about. And then you might invest with them, but you need to hold them to the same criteria you would for anybody else. And you can build governance into your family office. We help people set up their family charter or their compass. And we put that together with a governance and ethics document so that people know, how to move within the family, what's expected of them, how they can get access to the investments, how much, for what reasons. I would encourage you to start thinking about those things, because if you haven't thought through that and you do come into that money very quickly, those conversations are going to come up fast and in a hurry. Because if you're anything like me, I've told everybody I know about XRP, and some people have bought it and some people haven't. So I think they're going to become very wealthy very quickly and are going to have to learn these traits. Jim Rohn says, don't become a millionaire to make $1 million. Become a millionaire because of who it would make of you. And he also says, if you end up getting $1 million, best you become a millionaire very quickly, because somebody that has that money acts a certain way and understands certain things. And again, I would just encourage you to find the right professionals to surround yourself with. We have that at Digital Family Office. I've tried to curate the best and brightest people possible here in the US and internationally to be able to provide these services to people. But again, they may not be in your neck of the woods. If you're not okay with that, then I would encourage you to start trying to find people close to you, excuse me, that you trust. I said I was going to take a couple of these over here on TikTok. Excuse me. Felice Diaz says, how much XRP is needed to become wealthy? I will answer your question this way. The better questions you ask, the better answers you will get. That question people often ask and is very vague, and I will only be able to give you a very vague answer because there's no context. And the answer is whatever price you think it's going to times the amount of XRP you think. Well, I would divide the amount you consider wealthy by whatever price you think XRP is going to, and that's how many you need in order to be quote unquote wealthy. Well, I'll say this too. So my definition, man, I got the hot tea thinking it would help me, and it's let me down. My definition of financial freedom is 2 times you make twice the amount of expenses you have every single month in passive income. And for some people, that's only $20,000. It doesn't have to be crazy, right? Like, it doesn't even have to be millions of dollars a year for you to be quote unquote wealthy if you're making it passively. So I would just consider you to think about that instead of focusing on a certain amount of XRP. I would think about, what's my dream lifestyle? How much money do I actually need every single month to live that life? Write it down. I want this type of house. I want this vehicle. I want whatever it is you want. And figure out the bills for that. What does that look like every single month? Is it $20,000? Is it $50,000? Is it $500,000? We have a family office that we work with, and he's, he likes to have some fun. And are you going to bring me a water? Oh, cough drop. Thanks, babe. He likes to have some fun, and he needs $400,000 a month to live the lifestyle he wants to live. That's him. Not saying it's you, but he needs to make $800,000 a month, in my opinion, to be wealthy. And that, again, doesn't need to be everybody. Who's trying to fly private and go pop bottles and have a good time. Other people are pretty simple. Want a nice house, want their children to go to a good quality school, want a nice vehicle to drive. They want to go on a couple of vacations each year. It doesn't have to be overly elaborate or gluttonous. So let's say it is $20,000 a month that you need. $10,000 a month, you feel glamorous. You're living on the high on the hog. Maybe you live in middle America where it's not that expensive. Here in Texas, you could do pretty well on 10 grand a month. So you need $250,000 a year in income to be my version of wealthy. So let's say at a low interest rate, somewhere between, we'll say on the low end, you're making 5% on your money. You would need about $5 million parked somewhere that's earning 5% a year. And you never touch the principal. You just live off the interest. And that would put you in a position, if you lived moderately and maintained a $10,000 a month budget, and you had $10,000 a month extra every single month, you didn't have to worry about your bills. You could spend your time how you wanted to with your kids. And you knew that check was going to show up every quarter. Don't have to worry about it. I'm going to get, my $75,000 this quarter, and it's going to make sure that I'm covered for the next quarter on all my expenses. It's a pretty good life. And that's what I think a lot of people that are invested in XRP want to do. I think they just want their time back. I think that they've worked a 9 to 5 for a long period of time. I think that they're good people that want to do good things in their community. And this is just, I've met over 1,000 1% XRP holders. We have 500 of them that are clients. And I can tell you, by and large, that is the norm. That is who holds this asset. They are good people that want to take care of their family and give back to their community in some way. So anyway, that's my definition of financial freedom and wealth. You may have something wildly different, but I would just encourage people to ask good questions with context, and I can provide really good answers in those situations. If it's a very vague question, then I'm likely going to give you a vague answer. Daniel Smith, thank you for the super chat. He says diamond hands. I would agree. Diamond hands it is. Thank you, Ron, for the super chat. We've got Incognito again. Oh, this was something he asked earlier. Let's see if I missed any other ones here. Always want to make sure that anybody that does the super chat, I answer their question. We got Daniel. He says BTC has no paper value or known founder. Not good for reserve. I tend to agree. Like I said earlier, my prediction is that Bitcoin and ETH do not make it into the U.S. Strategic Reserve for crypto. Bryson over here has asked, how many tokens is top 1%? I believe it's over 60,000. So if you have over 60,000 XRP, which is about $180,000 at this point, give or take 150, something like that, you'd be in the top 1% of wallets. I don't know. I think it's actually less than that to be in the top 1%. The reason for that is I think there's really only maybe 50,000 people on the planet that hold more than 50,000 XRP. Probably less than that, to be honest with you. If you're on crypto Twitter, you've probably noticed this. I mean, there's just a small, maybe 40,000 people there on Twitter that really believe in the asset. We had 76,000 holders join the lawsuit with John Deaton against the SEC in the Ripple case. And those are people that don't hold. That's not all top 1% people. I think there are probably a lot of them in there. But I think the majority of XRP is held by institutions and enterprises and Ripple. And I think retail probably holds. So I sat down with Simon, who's the CEO at Uphold, 2 years ago in Austin at XDC, on XDC. Shout out to Trey for putting that event on and putting that together. Talked to him here in Dallas last week. Peter Rodriguez says 3,300 XRP puts you in the top 10%. So top 10% holders, I think there might be 100,000 people globally that have more than that amount of XRP. There's 6 million wallets at this point. So not that many. Like I think there's 60 something million or maybe 40 million something wallets for BTC. So XRP holders are significantly less than Bitcoin and highly concentrated is what I've found. So I don't know. Everybody always asks me, what's a good amount of XRP? The amount you can afford. Okay. Don't put yourself in a bind where you can't pay your bills or things are behind or you're like leveraging your house or doing something crazy. But imagine buying 1,000 Bitcoin when it was $1. That's what you're doing with XRP. That's where this asset's going. It's going to be $100,000 one day. It might be 10 years from now. It might be 6 years from now. It might be 5 years from now. But that's the type of wealth that people that are holding on to XRP at that point will have. So I think about it that way. I think about a longer term play. And it's never wrong to take profits off the table. Just be aware of the tax implications that you're saddling yourself with when you do that. And if you have other options, if you're working with a good wealth manager, they're going to provide you with some of those other options. I'm going to hang out for just 1 hour tonight before I wrap it up. So we got about another 15 minutes here. I mentioned this earlier, but if you do want to go check out the mastermind, we talk about all this stuff and more all the time in there. It's right up here at the top, beyondbroke.com. If you want to check it out for 1 month for free, all you got to do is put in the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you a free month there in the group, Carbon One or Social. I've been a part of a lot of masterminds. The minimum I've ever paid to be in a mastermind is $3,000, and I try to provide more value in this group for $25 a month than I've ever gotten from any of the other masterminds that I've been a part of. I want people to feel like they would pay more. I always want people to feel like they would pay more for the value that we're providing. So again, go in there, try it out. If you don't like it, no skin off your nose, you quit before the month's over. It is on Discord, so just so you're aware, some people have some frictions with that, but we have probably 1,000 hours worth of recorded content in there that we've filmed over the last 2 years. As the group's grown, we got almost 1,500 members there in the group of like-minded individuals that have the same culture and aligned values and are on the same mission. And a lot of those people are just going to be a few steps ahead of you and can help you get where you're going. And over the long term, we want that community to grow into an investment group. We've run 16 private investments out of that group over the last 2 years. Most of those have been invested in fintech companies that you know and love. And you don't have to be accredited. So that's the other beautiful piece of the group. If you're in Carbon One, you qualify as a sophisticated investor based on our definition, which is you have financial education and business resources that allow you to understand the risks associated with the investments that you're making. And you have a pre-existing business relationship with us. And we are the people that run the deals in the group. So you're able to participate even if you are not accredited. So if you want to get access to cool fintech companies that you might like or know about, which I can't talk about publicly because it's a 506B Reg D fund that we use there. I cannot market publicly, but I can tell you about, it's some cool stuff in there and you should go check it out. We can talk about more of that in the mastermind. So, and I know it sounds like a sales pitch to like get you in the mastermind, and it is a little bit, but at the same time, I really can't talk about it publicly because of the SEC and the way they've structured stuff. If we want to be able to allow non-accredited investors or sophisticated investors to be able to participate on the deals with us. So you can go gripe at the SEC. Off the grid. It says staking RLUSD or USDC ever been worth more than 5%? I don't think so. So the reason for that is they're getting a yield off U.S. Treasuries that back those assets, and that's how they're able to pay the yield. Just so you're aware. So whatever U.S. Treasuries are paying, that's whatever you're going to be getting for a yield on whatever stable coins exist. Jeremy says, you've mentioned 5 to 6 game-changing assets, XRP, ADA, etc., maturing in 5 to 6 years, begs to question the need for the crypto stock exchange in Dallas. So a tokenized stock exchange and a stock exchange that buys and sells crypto are very different. I think that public equities or stocks that are currently traded on the NASDAQ will be tokenized on the Dallas Stock Exchange. And I do think that there will be a way that traditional investment banks provide the ability to invest in digital assets. They're going to roll that in this year in 2025. I think it'll be late this year, but I do think it is coming to the party. And again, you know, we're at the forefront of that at Digital Wealth Partners. You can hold that in an investment account that has reporting on it. And if you wanted to borrow against your digital assets or show it on your balance sheet, we can print you a report that shows that. So you can use it to, you know, show that you have a certain net worth or qualify for loans or do other things if it's held in our custody that you couldn't anywhere else. Screenshots of wallets don't count for banks, apparently. I've tried. So anyway, we still need the tokenized stock exchange. And the reason for that, so you guys may remember GameStop and AMC. I'm sure that you do. Wall Street Bets and that whole debacle, right? They had to freeze trading on those two stocks and they took stocks back from people. That's because there's no accounting mechanism that's across all the clearinghouses and the brokers. There are 6 clearinghouses and tons of brokers, and they actually oversold both of those stocks. And they were settling T+2 at the time. So the clearinghouses had to front all the money that they were hoping to get back from the brokers, and they realized that they had oversold the stock. So they locked down trading and said, we're not trading any more of the stock until we can get this rectified. If you had a tokenized stock exchange, none of that happens. It's immutable. Everything's accounted for. There's a one-to-one backing. There's a full accounting mechanism across all of the exchanges or the brokers and the clearinghouses, and everybody knows where the stocks are all at the same time. So they can't be hypothecated. It solves a lot of problems. And it's instant real-time settlement and you could fractionalize those shares, right? And still keep track of everything. So there's a lot of benefits to tokenizing the stock market. And I do think that that's going to happen irrespective of if digital assets ever make it onto that platform. Living Legacy has been nice enough to put the code here. So again, if you want to go check out the mastermind, would love to have you in there. Just go connect with me on LinkedIn, and then you go to beyondbroke.com and you can put in the code BeyondBroke 1 month or 1MO, get you a free month there in the group. Geraldine, interesting name. I like your name. Says, hey, Jake, once your company creates the LLC, we need to pay an additional price to add the PPLI. So a couple different products here that you're talking about, Geraldine. Excuse me, let me take one more drink. All right. So we do provide LLCs for people that want to position themselves in the right spot previous to prior to price appreciation. If you've got north of $50,000 to $80,000 invested in digital assets, I would highly recommend that you do go ahead and set up an LLC, especially if you anticipate further price appreciation on those assets. You're able to mitigate taxes. You have the full breadth of the tax code to do that. You have the ability to squeeze the valuation on those assets to move them into a trust using the gift tax later on. You have the ability to set up PPLI, like you mentioned here. So private placement life insurance is a fantastic vehicle for wealth preservation and the ability to pass those assets on to the next generation with no estate tax, no gift tax, and no probate. Excuse me. So once you have your assets in an LLC, you can move those into an insurance policy on yourself. If you are of a decent age and insurable, so you don't have pre-existing conditions, and they can underwrite the policy on you fairly easily. The older you get, this gets a little bit trickier. You might have to use a loved one to write that policy, and they might have to be involved in the business to be able to do it, because you need insurable interest for the reason to insure this person with this policy. So you, being the one that manages the business, makes the investments, calls the shots, the business doesn't run without you. So there's definitely insurable interest there. So you take out that policy on yourself. You could fund that policy with the assets. We have a couple different ways we can do that. I think XRP is a currency. And so that's how the law is written, is it has to be a currency that funds the policy. I don't know that Bitcoin or some of these other assets have the same capability, but I think XRP in particular, you should be able to fund it in kind. If you can't, we borrow against it. We take the borrowed money. We fund the policy with it. We take the money out of the policy, buy the asset inside the policy. That's kind of the backdoor way of getting it done. But you move your assets in there, and then they can grow tax-free, even if you trade them. And they do have to be structured a specific way inside PPLI, and they do have to be managed by an RIA, and we provide all those things. But you could trade the assets in there tax-free, even if it was private equity, if it was real estate, if it's whatever you want. You can swap in and out of it tax-free, just like in an endowment or an IRA. So it's a fantastic vehicle for that. And you can also borrow against the cash value of the policy during your lifetime and use reinsurance to be able to pay off that loan upon your death. And then the assets would flow into your trust as the beneficiary of the policy. So we have all that set up. We've got great partners, Crown and many other insurance providers that we work with to be able to structure those policies. You do need at least $5 million in value to currently be able to do that. We're working on a few mechanisms that'll launch later this year that will bring that minimum down to closer to $1 million. So anyway, working with the best people in the world on this stuff, couldn't be more grateful for all the people that we have in our corner. But yeah, if you want the LLC, if you want to be able to set that piece up so that you know your position to be able to capitalize and use it for all the other things that I mentioned before, you can just go check out digitalfamilyoffice.io, and you can use the code 50OFF, 50OFF, DAG, like Digital Ascension Group, LLC, gets you 50% off. So we normally charge $3,000 to set up an LLC for your digital assets. That gets you the EIN, articles of organization, the template for the operating agreement, which is normally like $2,500 by itself. You don't have to do the BOIR. The Treasury came out and said that they're not going to make that happen. So we were going to do that for people, and we did file some. But we don't have to do that anymore. You'll get a certificate of good standing. We will send you a video on how to move, set up a bank account associated with the LLC. And then you also get a template on how to move your assets into the LLC in the best, easiest manner prior to price appreciation. So all that for $1,500 all in. You can't find it anywhere else. I've looked. It's $2,500 to $3,000 everywhere else. So that's why we charge that amount, but we give it to you for 50% off if you use that code 50OFF, 50OFF, DAG, LLC, get you put in the right place. Boo 33578 says, I can personally buy them, or do I need my LLC to buy them? You can personally buy the XRP or digital assets. The LLC is just to protect those. And here's the other piece. If you move, let's say you do hit it big, make a bunch of money. And I hope you do. I hope everybody here that's watching is invested in the right digital assets and makes a ton of money over the next 6 to 12 months. But let's say you cash out because you got to pay some bills. You want to take some money off the table. Awesome. Never wrong to take profit. Just remember the taxes. But you're going to send that $10 million that you got from the exchange to your bank account. If you haven't ever moved $1 million through your bank account before and it comes from a crypto exchange, you bet your ass they're going to lock it down. Okay. And excuse my French, but I've seen it. If it's a business account, you have a lot more leeway. That's the other benefit here. If you have a seasoned business account that you've already had open for 3 to 6 months and you move some money through it and you say, hey, I'm setting this up in anticipation of having a liquidity event in one of my investments, don't have to tell them it's crypto. When that hits the account, not going to lock it down. And then you have all that money free and clear, ready to go, ready to use it on whatever you want to buy, a property or whatever else you want to do with it. And it's not locked up at the bank and you have to call them and go up there and fight them to get your money that you've cashed out. So again, highly recommend setting up an LLC. I didn't even talk about the anonymity that it gives you to be able to transact in Wyoming where we set it up. You get attorney-client privilege, so your name is not publicly available on any registry. We set up a registered agent there in Wyoming for you, so it's their address that's on the LLC. So if anybody goes to look, they're not going to find it. I would highly recommend getting a PO box that you do your business through and use as your address when transacting. The more things that you can do to set yourself up for anonymity and privacy on the other side of price appreciation, the better off you're going to be. Because there are people out there that are predatory and go look for people. So again, we have private security and a lot of stuff at the family office, but we'll cross those bridges when we get there. I got a few more super chats here, and then we're probably going to wrap it up tonight. We've got Brandon G. He says, thanks for the content. Thank you, brother. Do you think that the billion XRP unlocked from escrow today is going to the U.S. Reserve? No. They already relocked up 700 million. They only put 300 million on the market. So no, I do not think it's going to the crypto reserve. And they put it on the back end of the escrow. So they do that every single month. Ripple is the custodian that currently manages that wallet, and it's a liquidity provision. They are the treasury, basically, for XRP. And if you wanted to move something into a global reserve asset, you need a treasury. You need somebody that's going to manage it. And it's either going to be the IMF or the U.S. government. And if you're displacing the dollar, probably going to involve the U.S. government. I think that's the only way that they're going to allow it to happen. And this person's mentioned trusts over here on TikTok. So we do help people establish trusts, again, to move your assets and gift that into a trust and move it out of your taxable estate. An LLC can help you squeeze as much value as you can to get those assets into that estate. You get 13.99 million this year that you can gift out of your taxable estate. Between you and your spouse, you get almost $28 million that you can gift out of your taxable estate. And I think that's the highest that it's ever going to be. So I think a lot of people are going to take advantage of that this year if we do see some price appreciation. If it's in an LLC, then you can gift small portions of equity to people that you already want to take care of, whether that's your children, your brother and sister, close friends. And because there's minority owners on the cap table, you get a devaluation of the equity valuation, not the assets. So your assets could be worth 50 million and you get a devaluation to 30 million. And now you can move the majority of that crypto into the trust with no issues. This person has asked, could storing millions of dollars in public stable coins like RLUSD or USDC on a cold wallet versus banks a good idea? What's a better place to keep your savings now through 2035? I think we provide, so we have $100 million worth of insurance on our accounts for our clients. And we're working on species insurance. As soon as we have an account over 100 million, I'm sure we'll be able to insure that account for as much as they want. If you're holding it at a bank, you only get 250 million or 250,000 with FDIC, and we know they're bankrupt. So if banks collapse again, you're not going to get your money. I know a lot of people that hold, no more than $250,000 across multiple banks to be able to make sure that that's situated. I know other people that buy high-end art as a way of storing their wealth. A lot of the wealthy people I know of buy multi-million-dollar pieces of art that's much easier to move and deal with and is a store of value and is only going to go up in times of inflation, right? It's a hedge. So that's a key that the wealthy have used for a long time. Gold and silver in a vault is also a great way to do it instead of having it in cash. I think that those trends are going to continue. I think that if you're holding money with a fiduciary, unless it's insured to the amount that you need it to be, it's a risk. So up to you. 3 digits is all you put here. It's not like 9 digits or 10 digits. That's probably okay in those stable coins, but anything north of $1 million, I would look at some other options. Honest Aim, we'll finish up with you. Thank you so much for the super chat, brother. Hope you and your wife are doing well. You still expecting the major final market crash to include XRP? Guess as to low price target for bottom fishing. Thanks for Anchorage custody and income. Love the mastermind. Blessings. Appreciate you, brother. I don't know. I think there's a possibility that XRP is skyrocketing while everything else is melting down, and we will see what that's going to look like. I wouldn't play with fire. I don't think that the exchanges are going to be liquid if there is a big crash. I would buy what you're going to buy now. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Only for entertainment and educational purposes only. If you want a financial advisor, you can work with Digital Wealth Partners. Go to digitalwealthpartners.net, and they can tell you to buy XRP now, or they can set a limit order for you to buy it at a lower price if you want to work with them to do it. And we charge only 20 basis points. So the lowest possible fees that you're ever going to find on the market, that's what we provide our clients. We got a couple more super chats, and I'm going to grab those before we wrap it up. Excuse me. Oh boy. Been on TikTok an hour. It's going to make me do the puzzle thing. Hi, Jake. Quick question. The LLC crypto creation include PPLI services or service related? Thank you. So that's later on. PPLI is very expensive. Just so you're aware. It's going to cost you like 4% or 5% of whatever assets you move into the PPLI policy. You're going to have to pay that premium. So if you move $100 million in there, it's going to cost you $4 or $5 million. But it completely protects those assets. They grow tax-free. You get, probate protection, creditor protection. You can borrow against them. There's a reason that the Rockefellers created it for themselves. And the person that we work with on PPLI came from the Rockefeller family office. Wouldn't you know? So they're doing it the right way. But LLC is kind of the pre-product that's required. It's not required for PPLI. It just makes PPLI much easier, and you can actually write off the investment or the creation of the insurance policy. Excuse me. Oh, man. Let's see here. If I'm missing any others before we wrap it up tonight. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. We got Lucas Walker. He says, excuse me, what is your opinion? I know it's different for everyone, but I have 33. Don't tell people how much XRP you have, brother. Is it a decent number? Trying to figure a couple million by age 30 possibility. If it goes to $1,000 a piece, you got 3.3 million. So yeah. Let's see here. Would have missed this one. Heath, thank you so much for the super chat, brother. He said, you think in market is going to be bearish because a liquidity is drying up. I don't take the volume we have in 2021 in the market. ETH won't make reserve. I mean, there's been, like $1 billion pulled out of crypto in the last 24 hours. Yeah, I don't know. I think that there is going to be another crash. I do think that the reverse carry trade is going to unwind. I think Tether is going to implode. But I think on the other side of that, specific assets make people a lot of money. Johnny Lakers. Hey, brother. What's the best way to take profits on these pumps like Sunday? I would get an OTC desk, especially if you have large amounts. We can work with Kraken to provide that. Man, I knew my camera was going to shut down. So we'll take one more here. Sorry again about the camera. Do you think the U.S. will quietly take over the XRP's escrow or force banks to hold XRP payments or somehow even bigger in play? I don't think that they can take it over. I don't think they'll use eminent domain. I think they already have some on their balance sheet through a pre-negotiated contract with Ripple. Greg Kidd introduced Ripple to the IMF in 2014. He was one of the first 5 employees at Ripple. And I think this has been in the works for a long time. And that is going to be it for tonight. Thank you guys again for joining me on here and taking the time out of your Monday evening. I hope you have a wonderful week. We will see you guys again back Wednesday night. Just as a reminder, if you do want to join the mastermind, you can check it out there at beyondbroke.com. The code is beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1. And then MO gets you a free month there in the group in both Carbon One and Social. And if you do want to, set up your LLC and make sure that you're prepared for your asset appreciation, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and put in the code 50 off 50 OFF DAG. Get you LLC. Sorry, is the last three there. So 50 off DAG LLC gets you 50% off the LLC there at the website. $1,500 all in, get you everything you need to be prepared for the crypto liquidity event. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you have a wonderful night, a wonderful week, and we will see you guys on the next one.